So you want to get better at drawing hair? Well, you've come to the right place. Today I'll show you how I draw hair using just 3 simple steps. The 3 steps I take are form, color and shading, and number 3, details. If you don't know who I am, I'm Isabel. I draw art on Instagram as Izzo's Easel. Here are some of my artworks. I've been doing traditional art for over 10 years, digital art for about 5 years, and I think I have some solid knowledge that I can give to y'all today. Now let's get into the tutorial. Number 1 is form. When you're drawing anything, it's really important to understand the basic forms and shapes that we all need to practice. So first I've got a cylinder. You can draw this cylinder in perspective. We've got a sphere. Shade it how you like with a cast shadow, whatnot. We've also got a cube, and this can also be in perspective. Next, we're going to practice drawing a sphere and cloth. So if you know how cloth reacts, there are tension points. Cloth reacts to gravity. So if we imagine hair like a cloth on a sphere, it'll be much easier to get a basic idea of the hair shape and its properties. The only difference is that hair, unlike cloth, does not react as a single entity. Typically, there are multiple hair strands that react differently based on environment conditions. So, let's go ahead and practice drawing these individual hair strands. So first, I'm starting out with a cylinder, somewhat in perspective. We're going to be drawing some coils around it, and we're going to make one type of hair texture. This is a pretty typical curly hair texture. We've got this clump of hair strands, multiple, wrapping around each other. And I'll call this one coils. This is how you draw coils, using that basic shape, that cylinder. Next, we're going to create a long rectangle, and imagine this is like a ribbon. Basically, I just draw 2 lines kind of similar, overlapping each other. You can add other strands onto it to make it look more like hair. And you can do this in multiple directions, number of curves. You could really do anything with these basic shapes. Next, I'm going to talk about C curves. So C curves, the name, pretty self-explanatory. It's a C shape. This is probably the one I use most of the time. It's really simple, a really simple single motion, not much to it, got that simple curve to it. You can play this, overlap it however you'd like, switch it up, but it still stems from that same C shape. So yeah, these are C curves. Alright, next we're going to talk about silhouette and overall shape of our hair. So of course, the first thing I do is head over to Pinterest to find a reference. Let's go with this one. The next step is I find where the hairline is. So this distance is going to be the same as our nose to our eyebrows, eyebrows to hairline, same distance. We're going to make this as minimal detail as possible to start. Start simple, work to complexity. We just want to find that main shape and silhouette. And there we go. Let's try a different style with different textured hair. Now, of course, I'm going to make the hairline again. This time, I'm going to find where the roots are. And as you can see, I'm using a lot of C curves here. Like I said, it is my favorite. It gets that nice volume, those nice layered pieces of hair on top of each other. And this is just a quick outline, once again. Now, we need to understand the placement of hair on our scalp. So let's break this down. First, we have the bangs. And this is where any part that covers your face, the hair is going to fall. We also have the sides, and we're going to have this on both sides. So we need to figure out how that's going to play out. And we also have the back. Even if our character is at the front, we're still going to see that. Finally, the roots. This is where our part is, and this is where we see the hair connecting to our scalp. So now, what about complicated hairstyles? Once again, I'm going to start with the hairline. Find where that root is, where we see our part there. And I'm going to try to draw a braided hairstyle. Now, I'm actually not using a reference for this. I learned how to draw braids pretty decently quite a few years ago. You kind of start with a zipper zigzag style and to just make those braids there. Now, we're going to get into some windblown hairstyles, and to do this, I like to imagine my hair going around a sphere. So once again, we're bringing in those simple shapes, right? So I'm just playing with this, once again, not using a reference, kind of making it up as I go, which is okay once you have enough experience practicing from those references that you can make your own inferences in your artwork. So I'm just going to keep adding details, overlapping, right? So I'm going to break this down with a couple of colors. So here we have our first layer, kind of like the top of our head and our bangs. This is the second layer, the sides and back of our hair, and then the final layer here. A good trick is to break up references or other artists' work like this to get a better understanding of how to draw it. So number 2, we have color and shade. Alright, so first I start my hair drawing with a base color. Fill that in. I don't know why I'm using orange, just because. Next, I take an airbrush and brush in different colors I might see in an environment. Next, I'm going to make a clipping mask. This is going to be our shading layer. I set it to multiply. Figure out where my light is coming from. I cannot stress that enough. The most important thing is to figure out where your light source is. So now I'm going to shade accordingly. I can erase some, add some back in, blend it together, and if you're curious, I am using the hard airbrush from Procreate. Now that I've got my basic shading done, I'm going to highlight those hair strands more with some deeper shading. Next, I'll create another clipping mask and set it to color dodge. This is going to be my light source. I'm going to intensify those colors a little bit, making them more vibrant. And sometimes I like to blend this out. Okay, this is going to be our last clipping mask, and I'm going to set it to add. This is going to be our hardest highlights, right? Sometimes I'll blend these out a bit too, but I do like to keep them a little bit sharper. And now we're done. The final step is detail. So when I do detail, I like to use a brush that comes to a point, and I make this on a layer on top of my sketch layer, on top of everything, right? This is the final rendering layer. So all I do is color pick random colors and kind of follow the existing shading and lighting map that I laid out for myself in those first layers. All I'm doing is adding individual strands, intensifying colors where it needs to be intensified, and just kind of making it more hair-like in texture. One method I like to follow with this is starting with my darker colors and then laying lighter colors on top of them. I think it makes the highlights stand out more, and it adds that depth because the light is physically on top. And that concludes the render process. You can see the before and after that detail layer. And here you can see all the layers I used. This is the final rendered piece. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. Please do subscribe, like, and share for more videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.